Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to our third event in the andPlay Conversation series for 2021. We are so excited to have Big Dog, Little Dog with us here today, which is Eleonore Oppenheim and Jessie Montgomery. Thank you guys for being here. As a reminder, andPlay in Conversation is made possible in part with public funds from Creative Engagement, supported by the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council and the New York State Council of the Arts, with the support of the New York State Legislature and administered by LMCC. It's also made possible in part with public funds from Restart New York, supported by the New York State Council of the Arts with the support of the Office of the Governor and the New York State Legislature and administered by LMCC. And as a reminder, if you've joined us for our other events, we are partnering with Word Up Community Bookshop for this event, a really incredible bilingual community bookstore and community center in Washington Heights in Upper Manhattan. So we'll have the info down below so that you can order some books after you're done watching this. That's all the business. So here we go. Big Dog, Little Dog, you're here. Welcome.
Yay!
Hi.
Welcome. Oh man, it's so great to see you both. It's like we met you two, well, we didn't meet you, but we got to see you as a duo at Avalock Farm, which is this wonderful summer institute a couple of years ago. And we just like fell in love with like your vibe as a duo and also your music making. It was just like absolutely wonderful. So we wanted to kind of start out by like, what was like one of your musical experiences that as a duo that made you actually want to play together and have a name and like be a duo? Like what happened?
We can't talk about that. No. There was no, it was like, there was no like decision. Well, there was a decision of some kind, obviously.
We came up with a name at some point.
Yeah, we kind of, I think it was just, we've known each other since college, and we sort of realized like right away that we had like kind of parallel lives as kids growing up in New York. And I think we just vibed right away, and we were just like, we should play together. And it was like a very casual like assumption way back in college. And then we just never, and then we were kids, and our lives were going in so many different directions, and we never kind of really made it happen. But like it was always like, yeah, we're gonna every time. It just felt like every time every time we got together, it was like, yeah, we're gonna figure this out. Yeah, I think gradually we just, when Eleanor was doing her doctorate, and she had to put on a recital, and she was like, well, this is perfect. Play on my recital. And the process of like learning like some crazy transcriptions that she did for bass and violin, we were like, okay, maybe now is the time. I mean, we kind of 15 or 10 years later or something, like
we farted around for a long time, and then we were learning these like awful Glear duets, and we're like, we gotta do something more interesting. Yeah, and then that's how we started. It was like we were like taking a break from like actually doing what we were supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
so I think that's how it happened.
Yeah,
officially.
Yeah, and then we
officially.
were like, this is fun. Obviously, we knew that was going to be fun. Let's apply for Avalock, and that was when and then that's really where like we decided, okay, we have to come up with a name to put on the application, basically. And then we did it.
Yeah, so basically, like, we used Avalock as a fire under our metaphorical butts to get stuff going.
Once you write that application, there's no turning back.
That's right.
Someone has read an application with a proposal and a name on it, so you're done.
Exactly.
So can you describe, like, Big Dog, Little Dog, the music that you're making, what you're, like, has it changed over the years? Or, like, if you had to give your kind of elevator pitch about it, what would it be?
Well, we both listen to a lot of different kinds of music, and that was one of the things that we kind of initially bonded over, was like all the different weird things that we were listening to.
Mm-hmm.
But not weird, not that the things are weird, but just interesting juxtapositions of things. And so that's kind of like where where our inspiration was drawing from. And I think, you know, there's always some sort of groove element involved, and whether that's like way subterranean or on the surface, I think there's always some kind of groove element, a lot of textural stuff going on. Like, how do we're really trying to explore like the fullness of the potentiality of each instrument, and then as like one massive sound together, how can we stretch that and knead it and, you know, add different colors and textures. And like sometimes we just will sort of, you know, noodle around on like a weird, with like a object or something on our instrument, and then that turns into something. So that's my like very quick and dirty explanation of where it's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, and also just like the aspect of improvisation and sort of like throwing something at the wall and then seeing what happens is like very much like foundational to our process. Like,
yeah, our process is that.
Yeah, that is our process. And
then polish it down later.
Yeah, and like I think just that sort of playfulness is something that like we just is part of our friendship, and also part of like just our attitudes about like a lot of stuff. just to you know, just see what happens, and like all ideas are good ideas, and we just, you know, play back and forth until we like what we have. And yeah, exactly.
So what does that rehearsal process look like for you two? Are you kind of giving idea, or do you just kind of pick up your instruments and start playing that morning, or do you like, are you talking through, what are you talking about in rehearsal?
Well, usually we press record on something. Yeah. And then we just exist in a room until someone inevitably gets itchy fingers and starts like doing something. That's
literally like that's not a reductive description. Yeah. That's exactly how it happens sometimes. And then
sometimes
someone will come in with like a more like a really structured idea, and will be like, oh, I've been thinking about this like cool color or this like funky chord progression, and let's see if we can just play with that. And we'll toss that around for a little bit, and gradually build the form out after, you know, once we feel like we have a groove or some kind of color that locks in the way we like it to, and then just and then we just like wait. I don't know. Then we just pause and let that sit, and whatever new idea pops out is the next idea, and then we just go with that. It's very like it's spontaneous
stream of consciousness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes we write stuff down, like
reminders about form usually.
Yeah.
So kind of like you'll have these very free improv rehearsals or sessions, and then start to kind of loosely structure some of them. Like, will you listen back and then start to figure out, so that when you're like performing, you're working from the piece that you've developed, but it's still very improvisatory throughout?
Yeah, I would say that it's like probably half the time we're actually winnowing it down as we're in real time during a session. And then probably the other half of the time we listen back and we're like doing it, you know, post-mortem style.
Mm-hmm. I'm always blown away by people who can spend so much time listening back, because I feel like that's always like my goal. And then I can never bring myself to like deeply do it.
It's so much like essential to creating something new out of what we've done, that we kind of, it's like necessary.
It's definitely necessary. Well, and it's like, you don't, if you're not sure about something, sleeping on it and then listening back later is a great way to see if that idea still holds up the next day, the cold hard light of day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that with myself, where I kind of need to like get in with the listening early on, because if I let it sit for too long, it becomes this weird thing that I'm just kind of like, oh, I'm not sure, was that terrible? And then I don't want to listen to it. So I kind of have to, if I start listening to it early on, it feels like it's more part of me still, and not just, I don't know, that really helps. But it's really great to hear.
Agree with that. Yeah. You're not in that vibe. You have to like exist in the world just enough to figure out what that world is.
Yeah.
And make,
That makes
yeah,
sense.
exactly. Still be able to live in it, but also see it from the outside a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's interesting to think about it that way because I feel like from my mind it was always like from like conservatory and it was like, oh, you have to go listen back to your recital, and I always wanted to wait like
Nobody wants to do
I
that.
wait like 2 months, right? Because you're like, if it's 2 months, like I'll have no attachment to this anymore, and I can like listen objectively maybe because I won't remember like all the horrible feelings I had during it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but that this is really like such a different listening process than like
Yeah,
it's
we're
not-
not. Yeah, because we're listening. We're not listening back for like something that should have been a certain way, as in
right.
you know, repertoire. Obviously, we're listening for things that we want to extract or
that we didn't notice.
Right.
Yeah, it's like construction instead of critique.
Right.
Right.
It's not deconstruction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then, because I think like when we were all in the same place at Avaloc, it was like you guys said, your first real sitting down and working on the band.
Yeah.
And so I think you were doing some songs that maybe you'd worked on that week, or some transcriptions maybe of like a piece you had, Jessie. And so I'm just curious, like, kind of how the repertoire has developed over the years. Like, are there pieces that you go back to? Or are you always coming up with new things? Is every performance a new experience?
Well, we generally do stuff from our album these days. And the cool thing about it is, like, you know, there's a lot of improvisation, so it's never going to be exactly the same every time we play it. But we do have like some newer stuff that we're sort of simmering. It's on simmer right now.
Mm-hmm.
But actually recording
Slower.
the album was a big impetus for writing some more stuff, because we literally had, you know, time to fill.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we had to fill it.
Yeah. We wrote like 3 new songs for the album. That was it. So it's like when we were at Avaloc that summer, we wrote like four songs or something like that, and then we wrote like 3 more just to fill.
Yeah, we went to the woods and, you know, wrote some more.
And
The
then
woods
for
and writing music go together.
Yeah, I think so.
We agree. Yeah.
for each of these songs, do you feel like you're always co-writing, that you're always co-composing these pieces, or are you sometimes like one person is throwing the ball in, like, this is really what I want to do, like, and so it's kind of one person is steering the ship, but then it becomes a co-writing? Or how do you feel about the writing process there?
I think what you just described, like, even when one of us has a thing we want to try out, for example, and we're throwing that ball in, the other person always then takes that ball and does some stuff and then throws it back.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's always co-writing, even if it's like, hey, I have this like earworm I wanted to work out with you and see if maybe it'll work here. I would say it's always just like,
it's always being tossed back and forth, even if because sometimes, you know, sometimes one of us has a more solid idea one day than the other, and we're like sharing whatever we have that day or don't have that day, and then it's always, you know, we just it's,
or sometimes the way we'll write is we'll just turn the thing on and just start.
Yeah.
Just like,
Yeah.
okay, go. And we're both playing.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, that's a different
co-writing.
That's a different way we co-write. But it's I would say it's probably more often that than any like
formal.
Yeah, and I think that like from watching you perform back then and even now in like the recent videos and the album and everything, there's just like, especially the video that I think we're sharing today, you can just like see the connection between you two, and it's so beautiful because it's just like, it's so clear that you are so focused on each other musically and like really connecting in the moment in a way where it's like, there's no music stands, there's nothing, like your eyes are literally on each other and just like creating something together, and it's a very powerful experience.
It is. It feels so natural too. It just like, it's just happening like organically, and it's just it's magical to see, and that's what we love about duo. So it's like so fun to see that connection between two people and the like playing music together. like
Totally.
it's really beautiful.
Yeah, and I think when we recorded that video, also we'd gotten together. That was like the second time we'd seen each other since the quarantine, and we hadn't really played together. So there was also that sort of thing, like, oh my God, we're
emotional background.
Yeah.
Maybe it's also like because you were masked in the video because it was earlier in quarantine, you like only see the eyes, and so you're so like focused on
laser beams coming from
like I can't show you anything with my mouth, so it must all be right. But and like both of you have such extensive careers in so many different directions as like performers and composers and improvisers, and like Eleanor, you were like on Broadway for a while. Like you guys are so busy doing so many different things, yet this is like such a beautiful project for your friendship and I think like your musical lives. And so we were curious how this project kind of fits into everything you're doing, or like what role it kind of has for you.
Well, yes, I get to make music with my friend, and and also just like that co-writing spontaneity is just like it's just a thing that I've always wanted to have in my life as a constant mode, and and so that's how we function basically when we're playing together and hanging out together. And so it's just like, it's great. Like it's necessary. It's a necessary balance to like, for me, like writing pieces that are fixed and, for other people, and I don't get to always play them. And anyway, so just having this outlet and always being able to play and be creative is like super great.
Also, it's really hard to nail Jessie down. So when we have a project that we can use as an excuse to hang out, everything just works out much easier.
Yeah, you're like, Jessie, you're in my living room today, not in the Chicago Symphony. Like, come on.
Right.
Symphony be damned.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
No.
Symphony. I love you.
We love the symphonies. We're good.
Thank you for having my friend. Yeah, but I agree. It's like absolutely a necessary outlet for me.
Like a counterbalance.
Yeah, the way you describe it feels like a natural also growth and like extension of your friendship, which is what I love to hear. I love to hear that, where it just seems like when you even talked about your friendship before you had this duo, you said it was very playful, it was very creative, and then you just kind of organically just started playing together as well more regularly. Friendship.
That happened.
Yeah, I think
it's like an inevitability, I think.
That's a good word.
it's funny because I think like we have 4 events and you're the 3rd one, and it seems to be kind of split half and half of like people who like the friendship or the relationship came before the duo, or even really with us. I think like the duo kind of came with the friendship. Like we knew each other, but we weren't very close until we started
It all
doing
happened at the same time.
But then along the way, it like becomes such an important part of it. Like they don't
meet at Banglewood.
No, we met at Oakland years ago, but we're not really like, we knew each other, but we weren't like close.
We weren't jamming.
Yeah, we weren't jamming.
Yeah, we were always just kind of like friend. Like Hannah always describes it that I was just around. So I was like I was a friend of her friend, and so we kind of had a mutual friend. And then we were just around each other, but we didn't really know each other that well musically. And then we kind of just one day decided to play together, and it worked really well. It kind of just happened. And then we also got along really well. So we were hanging out around rehearsals.
Yeah. But I feel like she was a couple years younger than me, and I feel like in college that felt much bigger. Like, oh, look at this like freshman. Like,
I don't have time for you.
Yeah. I'm not gonna make a new friend with someone so young. I was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit each about your like how you came to improvisation too, since that is really the art form that you're working within to create your music.
Sure. Take it away. Sure. Well, I was always sort of improvising because my violin teacher was teaching improvisation when I was little, and so she was teaching that along while I was playing, like learning Suzuki and stuff. And I was also like surrounded by like free jazz musicians, like all of my childhood, basically. And so just the concept of people getting into a room and like playing music, and there's no music, or the music is like a stripe over the whole page, or like it's thrown upside down, and somebody's just like
sparkles.
Somebody's like, taking off their clothes in the corner, and spontaneous music happening around you was a kind of a like regular occurrence. Minus the taking the clothes. That only happens. So there's like this, idea of like sort of spontaneous music making is very much just like a part of my ethos, I guess, in life, and I just find myself always trying to find ways to work that. I just always was coming back to it. Also, finally, like professionally, like with working with public quartet and all the stuff that went through that process, and then writing those kinds of things into my own compositions, for either myself or other musicians to play around with, and then of course working with Eleanore was a natural part of that whole trend, whatever, coming into this place now. So yeah, similar here. Mm-hmm. Also nudity.
In the corner?
No, it was less free, mostly post-bop. No, it was, so one of the things that we like sort of bonded over when we first met was that we both have crazy jazz musician parents. And so, I just grew up around people who were just constantly just farting around and playing and singing and dancing and whatever, just doing weird stuff, expressing themselves. Yeah. So didn't think it was weird. Yeah. Right. And I started like noodling around and sort of like writing music when I was really young. I would always like make up songs, or I would like do things on the piano, or scratch something out on my terrible violin. I quit Suzuki.
You played the violin.
I started
as
with
well.
Suzuki violin. Yep.
Wow.
So you guys weren't in the same Suzuki class?
No, different Suzuki. I think I would have maybe stuck with it if I had your teacher, but maybe. It was just too screechy for me. No offense.
When did you switch to bass then?
What?
When did you switch to bass then?
Oh, well, there was an intermediary period where I played cello for a while.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so I actually switched to bass because I wanted to play more jazz, and at the time I was like, only Ron Carter plays jazz cello, and so I don't know why, but I was like, I had this idea that I had to play bass, and I liked cello actually, but I don't know. So I started playing bass when I was like maybe like 13, 14, something like that. But yeah, always noodling around, always like making up songs and just generally farting around instead of practicing what I was supposed to be practicing.
So you did it by yourself, right? It was like, were you both improvising along, just like in your brooms when you were kids practicing?
Just by myself.
Or
so when I got older, I would I would play with other musicians. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I was like feeling confident enough, I never quite felt, I didn't study jazz the way I studied classical music, so I never was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like, I wouldn't like go to a session, like a jam session, and like dive in with like really great people, which I probably would have learned a lot more if I hadn't been so timid about that. But I did definitely, we had some amazing colleagues in our undergrad. It was like the first class of the jazz program at our school. So there were some amazing jazz musicians around. So we used to like hang out and play with them and stuff too. I didn't do that. She did that.
I did that. It was, that was when I started really like, okay, maybe I could do more of this. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, I played jazz in high school. Like high school and college mostly.
Right.
That was very long-winded.
No,
it's great. It's so like I love hearing everyone's different paths to. And that you both had it so young. That's just that's so incredible. I think about that a lot with not only my students, but like with myself. It's like, oh, I would have loved, like, I wish I'd felt that freedom as a young person with my instrument. Sometimes it felt very confining.
Right.
And that's really beautiful.
Situation, yeah.
And I think it's like, if you have a really great teacher, like your teacher, who can really encourage that in young kids, then it's inextricable from the music making experience. It's not like, here's practicing and then here's this other thing. It's all just making music, which I think is like the way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And as you get like when you're able to do more, you're able to improvise more because you're able to play faster, play whatever. I mean, it's just like
facility to get your ideas out there.
Yeah, exactly. So as your technique improves, you're really just everything improves because you're able to like even just imagine doing more and actually be able to do it. Sometimes you see that when kids where there's that struggle, like they can imagine it, but they still can't quite do it, and it all just keeps going up. It's awesome.
Together,
yeah. It's so interesting because it's something that we keep talking about as we have these conversations, that like this idea that people who are moving in our kind of like contemporary music circle are now, bringing so much improvisation or composition or all these different things that they're doing into the same table. That we're not showing up just as like performers anymore, just to like execute music, but have all these different like pathways to creating music. And it's
sorry, when you said execute music, it just like funny thing in my head. Please continue. Music, I'm here to go.
Yeah, execute you.
Do you know what you did, music?
Well, sometimes that's how it feels, right?
I know.
And so it's really, like Maya said, like so cool that you guys had these roles integrated from such an early age. And it kind of, I don't know, I feel like we're getting really stuck in your backstories, but it's very interesting. But like then I'm like curious, with all of this, like what made you then want to do like traditional classical music education?
I came to it by accident because actually, like, basically what Maya was just saying, when I started really studying music, my parents were like, you have to get really good technique. No matter what kind of music you want to play, you have to get really good technique so you can play it the best that you can. So to their mind, that meant you have to go study with like these with a classically trained teacher, because those are the people who are the technique mavens. And I think there is still a little bit of that going on, like in other types of music where it's like, oh, well, if you want technique, you have to go to the classical teacher or whatever. But that is how I wound up even getting an interest in classical music, was because I went to study technique, and then I stayed because I liked Bach. And I was like, I want to keep playing that. That's cool.
Yeah, essentially improvising.
Yeah, basically.
Like, he got a chord progression, he figured it out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know.
I actually, I was really, everything was like parallel happening. Like if you flip one side of the page, I was like, I started Suzuki at 4, and I went boop, 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 boop along the course, like from day one, with everything, classical training, etc. And then you flip it on the other side, and like all this other crap is happening too at the same time. So it wasn't like, I didn't like come to classical music. It was just like, that was what I was. My parents put me in the little boat, and they went, yeah, and that was that. And my teachers kind of took care of the rest. So
that sounds like such like magical musical childhoods. It's like,
A lot.
Except for the part where my dad tried to teach me theory for a little while. That was a complete flaming disaster.
Well, theory's never felt magical to me. Well, execute music.
Yeah.
The vibe.
True musical execution.
Yeah.
Do this worksheet. Yeah, I think it's funny because like both of my parents also play music for like fun, and they're not professionals. But and my grandma was a piano teacher, and so she started teaching me piano when I was like, I don't know, 3 or 4. And so I feel like there is always a weird kind of like family thing where sometimes it's like very like present, but then it can also feel a little like intense and oppressive of like I never wanted to practice like where my parents could hear me, because then I felt like it was all going to be like coming in from them of like that note was out of tune. I'm just like, leave me alone.
Right. Well, that's sort of a problem when you're doing Suzuki, because they literally have to be there doing that, which is probably why I hated Suzuki. Yeah.
I lasted in Suzuki for about like less than a year, and my mom always says that it's because I didn't like it, and I'm convinced it's because she didn't like it and didn't want to have to like participate in that point of it. But sorry, Mom, if you're watching.
We'll never know.
So what's on the docket now for Big Dog Little Dog? What's coming up next?
We gotta write some more songs.
Yeah.
Have we got a new record in the works?
Potentially.
I can't take this kind of pressure.
Can I pressure you into making another record? Oh, good.
Yeah, no, it's gonna happen. We're working out some new material kind of slowly throughout the year.
Another question I just thought of, that because you said that sometimes for rehearsals you'll just like press play and then eventually someone will start playing, and because you guys have this really long and strong friendship, I was just curious sometimes what like the balance is in these rehearsals, because I think it's really funny, like if someone was sitting in our rehearsals sometimes, like I feel like we get so distracted and we'll be like talking about like a television show or something in the middle of rehearsal, and then all of a sudden we're like measure 70 and we're playing like some hard music and we're like and then we stop and we're like, did you see that thing? And it's like all part of the process for us is like having the rehearsal time is really the friendship time as well. I guess I'm just looking for some acknowledgement that we're not crazy.
Listen back to what
we're not just wasting time.
It's probably, upon listening back, it's probably 90% just like whatever, shooting the breeze, and like 10% some musical nugget, and then a whole lot more shooting the breeze, and then there's a lot of that.
Yeah, no, we're exactly. I was listening to you talk, and it was like everything exactly. That's exactly what I was listening to.
I think
it's when you listen back, you're like, oh my God, I have to wade through like 10 minutes of us talking about what we had for dinner yesterday. Just to get to like one note.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes we've talked about like, do we need to meet for 45 minutes before a rehearsal so that we can like get this out of our system? But it feels like a very important part of the process that it's just like they're interwoven to a high degree.
It's just all communication. Just different kinds of communication.
Yeah, it would just be 45 extra minutes of doing the same exact thing. Would you two like to tell us a little bit about the piece that you're going to present to us today?
Sure. So we recorded this really spontaneous. This was a totally spontaneous piece that doesn't exist on our album, that we did for Amanda Gukin's Forward Music Project Autumnal Equinox program that she did last summer, where she was inviting different guests to perform and just sort of talk like we're talking now, talking through where we were in that moment in the autumnal equinox, and sort of setting this. She's setting the stage for a kind of meditative reflection through this online event that she created. So so then we this was what we came up with for that.
Um, and so I think earlier we mentioned how like the connection that's visible in this video is so powerful and mind-blowing to us and just such a beautiful thing. And so we were thinking about like, what are we going to share for this program? What are we going to counter with? And not counter, but complement with. And we thought we would really do a throwback to a piece from 2017 by Ravi Katapa, which was the first piece that was written for us that was like basically very improvised. Where I think 2016 was in my mind because we got a Chamber Music America grant for this piece in 2016. And we worked with him actually at Avaloq. I don't remember.
Ravi was at Avaloq when we were all there.
Okay, so it was the same summer. That's why this is so perfect.
Oh, wow.
So we might be using the grainy cell phone video. We'll see. But we worked with him at Avaloq when we were all hanging out there. And he kind of came up with this structure that we workshopped throughout the week that was this transformation of our sound and these textural ideas, essentially a lot of the things that you guys were talking about. And I think it was really, I don't think we're going to share the whole piece here, probably just an excerpt because it's pretty long. But I think working like that for us for the first time, I think was that kind of a feeling that we can have this different musical relationship, which is really based off of each other as like improvisers and as like music making in the moment.
Yeah.
The last thing is if you guys had any book recommendations.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm really excited about this for a few reasons. One is that it's a bilingual bookstore, and this book is sort of bilingual. It's English and Spanish. And second is that so it's a book by my friend. He's a poet, and he writes in Spanish and English. He's originally from Puerto Rico, but he lived in Washington Heights for like many, many, many years, till like a few years ago. And now he lives in Brooklyn. But he wrote a book. It's a beautiful book called The Life Assignment. It just came out this year, and it's by Ricardo Alberto Maldonado. And you should all check it out, even if you don't find it at Word Up. But they might have it at Word Up.
Yeah, they might. Local author, Spanish.
Yeah. Might encourage them to order it.
Yeah.
Yes, I just butchered the pronunciation of his name in Spanish because my tongue is dead. But you'll get the point. And check it out. It's a beautiful book. And even if he wasn't my friend, I would love the book. So
that's great. I'm going to put my year of Duolingo Spanish to use.
Yes.
And be like, I can definitely tackle this one. And Jessie, did you bring some recommendations?
Yes, I have a recommendation of a brand new publication for anyone who's a theater buff and likes to read, as into reading plays, by an amazing playwright named Daniel Alexander Jones. And it is his book. I'm going to get the title. Give me a sec. Oh, yeah.
It's like
it's his book, Love Like Light. And it's a book of all of his plays, many of his plays published, and then his own performance notes on those plays, which, includes sort of performance notes, essays, commentary on each of the plays. So, for any of you guys who are really interested in theater publications, I highly recommend this book.
Oh, wow. Those two sound great.
Yeah, both sound cool. And it made me think that I want like a compendium for your album of like essays and performance notes that you guys create as you're writing music.
Yeah. Well, look, we have no shortage of recommendations.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you guys both for being here and talking with us. This was so fun, and we will share information about you down below so people can go check out your album and your work. And did you have anything else you wanted to plug?
Where can we find you?
We're good. We don't have any. Yeah, no, we're good. Yeah,
we have you found.
Just hang tight.
Sounds good. Well, thank you guys again, and we'll see you soon.
This was really fun.
It's really great to see you both.
Yeah.
It's really good to see you both.
I feel like we're like we're all grokking the same grok.
Oh yeah.